Ken Corley, first of all, I want to thank the Minister for being here, and I want to pay a compliment to Deputy Cahill, who, as well as bringing this bill forward, is chair of our committee. And I will say one thing with Deputy Carty here beside me, and Martin Brown, and indeed the senators, that it's a fairly, we might have disagreements, but it's an enjoyable committee to be in. And I've been on 3 of them, and I can say one thing, and I'll say it very clearly. Deputy Cahill is very constructive. He wraps us on the knuckles when we need it, but he's a very fair chair, so I want to compliment him on that. In going to this, the first thing, Minister, I will say is you need cattle in the country for all vits to survive. And the one thing I would ask you to do, in relation to, at the moment, on the beam scheme, you will notice that your department sent out letters to farmers over the last, sent out at different times to tell them how they were getting on, and farmers where there might be a farmer and then their son and they join the herd number together, or there might be a farmer that had a dealer number as well. In May there, they have hammered it all together. So they have blown a lot of them over the beam scheme. I don't know, is that designedly or what the reason is? But you cannot be in January and February told that you're sound and everything lovely and you hold your stock number sound, and then they decide to, when couples couldn't get married, they decided to marry the herd numbers over the last few weeks, and ended up blowing it up for a lot of the farmers that have applied for beam. And I would ask you to look at that. In relation to, and Deputy Carty touched on it as well, to the licensed merchants, these people need a solution. To be quite honest with you, I endorse everything Deputy Carty has said, for the simple reason they've done their courses. And look, we can say, well, look, nothing is changing, and if you have a piece of paper that'll go, you can go anywhere you want. And that's right, that's dead on. But the thing about it is, you'll look well if you go into your vision and say, will you give me a prescription, and I'm going down to Johnny down the road in the co-op, because they'll have a puss on them, to be quite frank about it. So I think that needs looking at. But in relation to this bill, the one thing I will say is that in this country at the moment, you'll get a vet quicker than you'll get a doctor. That's the reality. If you have a cow calving at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, any night of the week, within 15 to 20 minutes, you have a vet. And you could wait 3 or 4 or 5 hours for a doctor. And that's the one great thing at the moment, the service, the relationship between the vet and the farmer. And I think the vets around the country that's given that service have to be commended. But the one thing that's happening, and look at it, it's starting happening in cities. It has moved to certain counties. We are aware of it, because Minister, you were on the previous Agricultural Committee. We are aware of the problems that have started in other areas. And yes, what's there at the moment, and the Junior Minister read it out, that you have to give 24/7 cover. But you can be given 24/7 cover and say to someone, I'll be with you in 3 or 4 hours, because I'm with Johnny, Paddy and Mary before you. And that still ticks the box that covers you. It doesn't give you the service that you have now. And look, I have a near relation that's actually a vet, that as a youngster had to worked in different countries, and they were down in the south of England, and I just happened to be talking to him one weekend, and he was on what they call on call, or he was on duty, and they had to cover about 80 or 90 miles. They were going into the side of London, and they were going, and like some of that isn't as intensive as we are. And that showed me one thing, that when you have corporate entities looking after something or taking over something, it's basically money. That's the bottom line for the likes of them. We have a serious good relationship around the country. There's a trust in every farmer to ring their local vet. And there's a relationship there. The vet nearly knows the cattle they have, to be quite frank about it, in most situations. And they know the type of farmer they have. But when you have an entity coming, they're there to come in from, and look, let's be blunt about it, there's some of them coming in from other countries that want to basically take over the different practices here. And yeah, there will be the odd vet that look at the money, to be shown with the money, and they'll want to take it. But we have to think of more than the vet in this. We have to think of the farmer, the service and the country. And if you listen to the Minister, she talked about Ireland. We export a lot of product. We need vets to certify everything that's out. We have high standard of animal welfare. And we need to keep that going because we are competing with other countries. And we need to make sure that we keep this sort of relationship going between the local vet and the local farmer. Because if we end up going down a road, there's an animal, just think of animal welfare. If a cow was calving and she was left for 7 or 8 hours, what situation would she be in? At the moment, 15 minutes, you have a local vet, no matter what hour of day or night it is, a yo lammin. Like, this is the service, and we need to appreciate that service that we get right around the country. But if we let this piece of legislation go through, and like, you know, the CCCP or the Competition Authority, whatever you want to call them, they're mighty at shoving their nose into some things, but when it came to competition in the beef trade, they weren't half as fond of looking at the likes of the factories. But they like to rattle the farmer then and nearly leave them with no vets if they could, only big corporate entities in different places. You cannot have the west of Ireland or a county with one vet on call at weekend and shut down the rest. The likes of County Galway, for example, where I live, it's as near for me to come to Dublin as it is for me to go to Connemara, where Eamon O'Keefe is. So you cannot have one vet if they take over all the practices, and that's what's shaping up, whether we like it or not. We have seen the first raised flag and the red flag that has been raised, and we're lucky we've seen it, and it was in your own county, Minister, that the first flag was raised of problems arising. And it's good to get a warning, and you're learning by a warning, and you're learning by if there was a mistake made. And we, as legislators, and indeed with this bill, and yeah, let it into the committee, and if there's certain little bits, I'm sure Deputy Cahill will bring us through all the bits along with the legal people and everyone, and we'll trash it out. But I will ask you one thing, Minister. I've heard a few bits of stuff here and there that it's sure it's a private member's bill or whatever. I will ask you to send it in to our committee ASAP, because the clock is ticking on what's happening. My understanding is there are certain practices in cities that they're looking at the small animal sector, which is pretty, you know, there's pretty good money out of giving a bit of Ivamec to a dog or whatever, or cats or whatever they give them, and there's pretty good money out of that sector from my understanding. And these guys are trying to hone in on that at the moment, and look at, they have diverted people. If you look at England as an example, England has gone down the road of the small animals. They've got them to insure them. This is the new crack that's going on. Insure the dog and insure the donkey and insure the pony and insure everything. And the vet will come out then and sure they'll nearly bring them to the operating theatre to do everything with them. But the bottom line on it is, it's the ordinary person that's paying. But when you look at a farmer, you couldn't be insuring every ewe and every cow that's in the place. Like, we need to do realistic things, and you wouldn't be able to afford the type of way that these new corporates are bringing people down. And let's not fall into the trap that other countries have done. Let's make sure that we stand up for the type of service and give credit to the type of service that we have got over the last number of years. And the one thing I will ask you, Minister, is, or is it the Taoiseach or whoever has that holds these bills that can put them on or put them off, I would ask you to push it into our committee as soon as you can, the way that we'll get the ball rolling and that we get it moving, because I believe the clock is ticking in this. We've got the warning in Donegal, we've got a few warnings that we're watching in other cities around the country of things that are happening, and I think that we need to make sure ahead of it, as Deputy Carty said, that we're lucky in one way, that we can be ahead of this if we do it right now. And I believe that working together in the Ag Committee with input from yourself, Minister, and indeed anybody else, we're willing always to listen. But in fairness, I think that we should get working on it as soon as possible, get it through the Dáil and get it into action to, to make sure that we protect the farmers out there that rely on the vets and the service that they give. Thank you very much, Cian Corla.
Thank you very much, Deputy Fitzmaurice. I hope there aren't too many vets prescribing Ivamec for dogs or cats. That wouldn't be a great idea.